And this all obviously goes along, of course, hand in hand with the income. And it has also immediate effects, especially on children. And we can see the effect on obesity. So as in all Western world, and not only developing countries, but also in non-developed countries, the food regime, the consumption of what we eat affects our health, and obesity, and in this case also overweight, is a major risk, especially for young children. So this is how it advanced through the years from 2010 approximately till today. All in all, there are at least 100,000 families in Israel today which are considered to be in severe risk on food security, which means close to 500,000 people, if not more. And again, the measures for determining food security is derived from a complex formula related to income and living off cost. So it's not translatable as is to be compared with other countries. But still, it's a severe issue that needs to be taken care of. So in 2017, we had an international meeting on sustainable food systems in Tel Aviv University with over 700 participants and delegates from all over the world. And one of the outcomes of this meeting was a call for action that was issued by Elliot Berry, myself, and other participants, where you can see that the main issue that we recommended for the Israeli government was to establish a master plan towards implementation of sustainable food systems here in Israel. And to establish that in a statutory sustainable food system, we needed to establish a task force, which haven't been established since yet. And this master plan should have evolved and involved a method to have a high nutritional value to be available to all people, to ensure the right of every citizen and household to have an affordable food basket for sustainable. And here in Israel, we recommended, of course, the Mediterranean dietary pattern for Israeli sustainable diet. And this is very important because not everywhere in the world you can establish a Mediterranean diet. It has to be fitted to the people, to the region, and to the culture of that particular region. And lastly, we needed to support this program with an interdisciplinary research in Israel. So it needs to be backed by evidence-based information, which overreaching legislation, institutional infrastructure to allow school and public education, and of course, capacity building. So 2018, beginning of 2020, COVID broke to our world. And as in many other places, you can see here, again, this is in Hebrew, but if we go through time from the end of 2019 to beginning of 2020, you can see the rise of unemployment, which skyrocketed from 5% to more than 20%, up to 25%, meaning that out of the 4 million people on the workforce here in Israel, about 1 million people lost their jobs. And on top of that, we had, as other countries, problems of importing the basics for the industry to bring workers, materials, which affected, of course, our food and manufacturing industry, and also affected the ability to maintain agriculture. And due to natural disasters and other limiting factors, you can see here a basket of cherry tomatoes skyrocket to $10 a basket. So all this contributed to a problem with food security and nutrition. So it just aggravated the situation we had before, and it estimated that at least 700,000 people are affected by the COVID on the level of food security. So to this end, together with Professor Arnthorn from the Hebrew University and other experts and researchers, we have called the government for call of action on 3 timelines. On the short term, to allow food supply, which has been actually done together with NGOs and the military to groups of risk all over the country, to establish a professional management, which was also established on the health panel, but not on food and nutrition and safety, which is really crucial, to establish a governmental agency for food support, which has not been implemented yet. And very importantly, to support local food production. And I hope that we'll hear more from our speaker from the Ministry of Agriculture. On the midterm, to further and deepen the support for research-based decision-making, which is very important, define the risks, those that are at risk and in need, to provide food support, to implement programs for health, food, and prevent obesity and diabetes, as I've just described. In the long term, to have the state budget included all these programs to allow a long-term program supporting management-based of research and knowledge and expertise rather than involving politics. So experts should lead this battle. And this is actually, through reading, I've seen that this is an issue all over the world. So if we look globally, moving from Israel, here we have a report from the FAO, the state of food security and nutrition before COVID. At the end of 2018, we see that about 10% of world population is undernourished. And you can see its distribution between Asia and Africa, Sub-Sahara and other countries in Africa are on a major issue suffering from undernourishment. So when COVID broke, there was a serious effect. On the same lines we have seen here in Israel, the loss of income, the inability of small farm holders and poor communities, especially in the rural areas, to support themselves, has an aggravated situation. And the World Food Program estimated that in addition to the 130 million people who already are facing hunger and insecurity, food insecurity, this might be doubling by another 135 million people across the world in different regions. So when we speak globally on the short term, although much is being done locally and with international entities, there is a need for immediate intervention to support communities at risk with those additional 125, 130 million people, mainly in Sub-Saharan Africa. And in the mid and long term, there is a need for an international support long-term plan, which is evidence-based. Recently, a committee of the World Food Security in Rome has issued a report, and you can find this report on this link, with these major suggestions or conclusions, which is to target social protection programs to better protection of vulnerable and marginalized food system workers and farmers, to provide better protection for countries that depend on food imports, and this is very important, strengthening the economic policies, more diverse and resilient distribution systems, again, a very important need, and more resilient food production system. And when saying this is also affects, of course, Israel, where we need to maintain our self-sufficiency and self-production of what we have been doing, especially fruits and vegetables. The FAO, the WFP, sorry, has just been recently been awarded with the Nobel Prize for their contribution on food security over the world, on over 60 countries and 130 million people. So internationally, cooperation and thinking of those who are at need is a major challenge, and indeed, there has been much being done successfully, and we need to maintain that. So the COVID-19 is not, unfortunately, not the only natural disasters we're facing. You can see here that 2017, based on research evidence-based done in Tel Aviv University, FAO has issued an alert on another virus, this time affecting tilapia fish. You can see here fish that were identified in Israel suffering from a virus detected again by a cooperation between a Tel Aviv researcher and a veterinary school member at ARO. And this is under the roof of the Manus Center. And based on this research, they were able to first identify the virus, provide the means to detect it, and then it was discovered that it is spreading all over the world. And now to try and initiate the generation of vaccines, again, to mediate the fight against this virus, as it serves as the third most popular fish for protein for many, many communities, both coastal communities, but also across the developing countries. Another aspect of the Manus Center that we've been doing, and this is on the educational part, we've been running for the last 5 years an international master program for biology and food security. Here you can see two of our graduates, one from Liberia, Jacob Dennis, and one from Uganda, Owen Segura. Each of them have taken, after being trained, and took their own path to support food security in their own countries. One organized an educational system in his country, and the other one has joined an NGO and research organization while doing on his own articles and research to promote equality and law and food security in Uganda. So I call this the ripple effect, because we can train our students, but we can do, instead of them, their own work. This is their mission, and this is our pride from seeing the so-called revenue once they go back home to their countries. In addition to this, all over Israel and the world, we see now new technologies which we also support, and we all see the increasing booming rise of consumption of meat, and we'll hear again a more elaborate lecture on this during this session. And if we consider the amount of land that is needed to grow the cattle or the feed for other animals, which is about 30 to 25%, if we just compare this in the United States, think of all its effects on water consumption, CO2 pollution, land use instead of producing food. So we need alternatives, and we'll hear more about it. Today we can see more about veggie burgers or sources from proteins and nutrition for plants, and of course cultivated meat that can replace for the same purpose the use of animals. So we need to have innovation and to have open-minded, to have international cooperation to achieve all that. So the World Wide Web allows us to hold this session today, but we need, if we look into the future, we cannot postpone our fight for poverty, hunger, nor the fight for climate change post-COVID-19. We need to do that based on knowledge, which will help us to find the solution, to make the policies and to implement them. And that's why I say we need to work together. And I'm glad that Ben-Gurion University also joined Tel Aviv University, developing also a program with other countries. This was just announced about Ben-Gurion University and Chennai in India. So this is the lead, and I think we should all come together to tackle these problems. So I hope I've given you enough inspiration, and when looking at the World Wide Web, we can consider that www is where we can think of a way we will find the solution for any problem. And I hope I've given you enough food for thought, and I'll end here and take questions at the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nir. That was really incredible. The numbers are, wow, just, you hear about it all the time, but when you come to really see that, it's really amazing. So thank you again. And as you said, we'll have enough, we were allowed to have another 10 minutes at the end of the session, so we will have some time for questions then. So next speaker is Dr. Shoshan Aran. Shoshan, please.
Thank you for inviting me, and good afternoon to everybody. Since time is limited, I'll just hop into the presentation. Just let me know if it's if it's working. The previous talk was about developed countries mainly, COVID impact, and some information about the Africa and its problems. So my talk focuses on problems that existed even before the COVID-19 in sub-Saharan Africa. So I'm the founder and the manager of Fair Planet. It's an NGO with a vision to provide smallholder farmers in developing countries with means to exit the cycle of poverty and hunger. And we do it by building a sustainable ag-tech bridge, which I'll describe in a minute, that has a proven, scalable, and durable impact. So first, let's address the problem, and I'm focusing on agriculture and food production. So when farmers do not have access to ag-tech solutions, their crop yields are very low, and that leads to malnutrition and poverty. And we all know that if we do nothing, it will only get worse, since the population is rapidly growing. So our solution is to identify and provide access to ag-tech solutions and to make them suitable for local conditions in Africa, accessible and affordable economically. And we focus on vegetables since they are not only nutritious, but they generate high income from small plots. And I was glad to see that the World Bank found that seed is the most important single input in crop production. Since I'm a seed expert, for many years I worked with the seed companies. We know it, but it's nice to have the stamp of the World Bank in that regard. So how do we bridge the gap? The idea is to work on a win-win model. We see the local farmers as key agents for change. And once they boost their crop yields and income, they can benefit from economic growth. And then they can take better care of their families. We work with local public partners, Ministry of Agriculture and Knowledge Institutes, and we transfer all the knowledge and the solution to them, and they are able to lead the economic growth of their rural communities. And we collaborate with the private sector, which develops the solutions, the ag-tech solutions. And the way we approach them, it's a tough situation to work with smallholders, but doing good is a very convincing message, and eventually they will develop future markets. So we were able to take them on board with us. So I'll just give an example of the seed solution, which was the first one that we have implemented, but it goes to almost every ag-tech solution. So together with the local partners, we define the needs of the smallholder farmers. And then we send a wish list to all the seed partners that are collaborating with us. What is very unique about Fair Planet as an NGO, we have access to about 80% of the world's best vegetable seeds. So we can provide unique solutions to the local needs of the farmers, drylands or wetlands, highlands and lowlands and so on. We have a very strong professional background in the seed business, so we know how to work with such partners, and we do the adaptation or the evaluation in a very professional way. I will not go into too many details, but just to show you that to find a valid and adapted solution, we invest 3 years just testing and collecting data. And only then we can be sure that whatever we identified is suitable for local conditions. And then we start, the main effort is the transfer of the solution and capacity building of farmers. We see them as the key agents for the change. We provide them an affordable start. In the case of seeds, we give them free seed samples, but only for one production season. We visit them on their farms every week, like the same system that was developed in Israel years ago to support new immigrants to Israel who were not experienced in agriculture, and knowledge about the markets, and it becomes accessible and affordable. So that's the concept. Now what we did in Ethiopia, we are there since 2012. This is just an example of a vegetable variety trial in Ethiopia. We have 4 training centers in the 3 agroclimatic regions of Ethiopia. One of them represents dryland, hot conditions and very arid, mild land, mild conditions, and highland, cold conditions. And these are our public partners that we collaborate with. You see Mashav, you see the Ministry of Agriculture in Ethiopia, University, KKL, Netherlands Enterprise and Agency, and the Joint. So we see it as a joint effort. As my previous lecture mentioned, we need to work together. Just an example how testing varieties for adaptation to local varieties looks like. Each bar represents another variety, and you see that we can find varieties that improve the farmer's productivity. If you see the red horizontal line here, the dark red, you see the average tomato yield in Ethiopia is less than 10,000 kilograms per hectare. And the high quality varieties can increase the yield 5 times more. And then we advance them and make them accessible to the farmers. We also demonstrate and test irrigation solutions that allow farmers to save water. We also test mulching and pumping solutions, everything that can fit and solve the problems of the smallholders. As I said before, we have 4 training centers in Ethiopia, and we invite the farmers to visit the training centers, but more importantly, we go out to the farmers' fields, as you see in this picture, and train them on their own fields and invite the farmers to see improved production methods. And that's another picture. And we have open days in the villages, so the whole village become exposed to the new solutions. We also develop crop production guidelines that are specifically tailored for the capacity of the smallholders, both technically and economically. So since most of them don't have the ability to read and write and calculate the mathematics, we teach them how to do precise fertilization using Coca-Cola cups and illustrations of the age of the plant and what the plant needs every week. And that works fantastically because you just show them the picture and explain, and it works. We invest most of the efforts in having training teams that visit the farmers on their own fields. We visit lead farmers in every village. And we have volunteers who join the team to allow scaling the reach. And we can visit 200 field visits. This is a specific area in East Ethiopia, extremely dry and desert conditions. We visit the farmers every week, and more than 80% of our efforts are focusing on training the trainers and training the farmers. We have trained more than 130 experts and development agents because they are the ones to continue and train their local farmers. And these are the results of the farmers, not in our fields, but in their own fields. More than 2,000 farmers that we collect data on a weekly basis. And you see that the tomato productivity increased more than 5 times, onion more than 3 times, and pepper almost 10 times. And this is due to access to better seeds and knowledge. Knowledge is extremely important. And if you look at the increase in the income of the farmers, you can see that from only one production season of 1 dunam, we call it in Israel, 1/10 of a hectare, the farmers were able to double their household annual income, which means it has a fantastic impact on their ability to survive and to continue. So it's a flow of knowledge from Fair Planet. As I said, it's an NGO. We work with local experts and development agents. We train lead farmers on their own farms, and through this, there is a diffusion to fellow farmers in the same villages and beyond. And due to the diffusion effect and the extreme benefits of the seeds and the knowledge, we have already reached 75,000 fellow farmers and influenced the lives of almost 500,000 people in Ethiopia. So just a summary, what we do. We find out the best agtech solutions that fit the local needs, and then we develop protocols that are suitable for their economical and technical capacity. We do on-farm training, which is a key element for durable technology transfer, and we train the trainers that are able to continue the work once we complete the intervention. And what we found out, the smallholder farmers have at least tripled their yields and their income increased dramatically. So increased income means they can save money and they can invest in their future. In terms of nutrition, a very dramatic improvement in the nutrition of the children. Local from the Hebrew University is doing the evaluation of the program, and these are some data from their evaluation. So kids have much better access to animal protein, moving from once a month to twice to 3 times a week, which is very important for their development. School attendance is increasing dramatically. Before we started the project, only 50% of the farmers reported sending their children to school, and after the intervention, more than 90% of the kids attended school. And in summary, the focus is on allow them to make more money from their farming, and this allows them to continue and benefit from sustainable economic growth. And therefore they can benefit from improved nutrition, and their school attendance of the children is rising significantly. Everything that we are doing is aligned with the local government targets and the UN SDGs. And there is a built-in exit strategy for us. Once we complete the training of the trainers and a good number of lead farmers, we can move elsewhere, and the project continues by itself. And that's it for my talk.
Shushan, thank you very much. That was very fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I am inviting Dr. Michal Levy. Michal, please.
Hi, Shushan, can you please stop share?
Yeah.
Okay, So first, thank you, Tzipora, for inviting me for this session. And I think it's a very important conference. And I'm glad to see that there are a lot of people that are joining in general this conference. And hopefully more will see the recording and also will share the information that they are exposed here now. So the desertification processes and climate change have led to the understanding that, in fact, the field of agriculture, as we all have defined it until recently, has expanded. We need to look at the whole growth process holistically. Today, we're talking about the whole supply chain, the value chain, basically from field to fork. And by saying that, I'm including the growing process, the care for the crop during the growing, harvesting, packaging, transportation, shelf life, and up to the final consumer. And of course, this includes the marketing and the sale processes. I think that the agri-tech field and the food tech fields are combined with a very fine line between them. This line is blurring over time, and there is more and more overlap and connection between the two. The reason for this, I believe, among other things, of course, is the traceability and transparency in the growing process that today are more and more required from the growers. This transparency creates the closeness, creates a closeness between the farmer and the consumer. Other reasons are concerned for the environment, sustainability, branding of the product, and the quality of the product. And it all starts basically in the field. So in the last few years, there is a dramatic change in practicing agriculture. We can say that we are in the middle of the fourth agricultural revolution. The first revolution was the Neolithic revolution, and it's occurred about 2,000 years ago. Humans changed their habits and moved from nomadic hunters and gatherers to sustainatory agriculture societies. At this point, men began to grow agricultural produce proactively. The second revolution began in the 17th century. That period was characterized by accelerated population growth and consequently increased demand for food, basically the same as we have today. This has made a difference in the characteristics of agriculture and transitioned it from local agriculture for self-use mainly to commercial agriculture, including marketing the produce to long distances. During that period, people started also to use machinery in order to replace manual labor. The third agricultural revolution was basically the Green Revolution. And that happened during the 20th century, that countries have been able to significantly increase crop yield, mainly of wheat, maize, commodities in general. And that was thanks to the use of new varieties. They were also increasing the soil fertility starting to use chemicals and also pest control to fight diseases. At that time, they were also starting to use new growing methods, such as a monoculture. Basically, it's to grow a single crop in a field at a time. And I believe that that brings us to the fourth revolution. So, of course, there is no formal definition yet, but we want to see it as a revolution. And of course, it means the introduction of technologies such as artificial intelligence, image processing, Internet of Things, big data, robotics, and much more to the world of agriculture. All these entering the world of agriculture because there are new challenges as climate change and more that demands new solutions. I think that the idea that humanity have passed through all these revolutions, it basically because there was a problem and humanity has to overcome it with a solution. So, in fact, if we are combining the development of new growing protocols with the technology, this will be the key to success and will promote prosper in agriculture, even in the age of climate change. Also, of course, in times that we are all concerned for the environment, and we have also heard about the food security concerns. Transparency that is today needed, and much more. We will, of course, start with the precise agriculture. We are required, on one hand, to save water, and on the other hand, to increase yield in extreme climatic conditions. By significantly introducing technologies that enable monitoring and providing irrigation recommendation, it will be possible to achieve both goals. These recommendations are given on the basis of analysis of weather forecasts, understanding the type of crop and its response to various situations, and that's the importance, taking into account a lot of information that was accumulated over many years. That's the big data. All of these allow for these systems and sensors to give recommendations that take into account extreme weather and bring the plant ready for the extreme situation. This preparation is significant to get a normal and even higher yields. Climate change also directly affects diseases in various crops and animals. The changes expose entire areas for outbreaks of diseases that did not exist in these areas previously. Here too, technology monitoring and detection in the early stages can help the farmer eradicate these diseases before it hits the entire field. I believe that these actions that actually saves inputs of water and pesticides can lead, in addition to the saving itself, also for more sustainable practices and even increase in yield. In the longer term, of course, breeding processes in both traditional methods and genome editing can bring new varieties for heat resistance or other tolerance to other stresses that affected by climate changes. In addition, today, we see a combination between developing new technologies and robotics with growing methods, new protocols. For example, orchards that are grown using the fruit wall method. This method allows for two things. The first is adaptation and optimization of the growing method to technology in order to save labor. And on the other hand, the ability to grow in areas we have not grown before. Here in this example of root wall, I mean in the height. By using robots for harvesting and other work that needed in the field, it is possible to grow at heights that in the past, the harvest was not effective. In addition, it is possible to dense the trees and increase the yield per hectare as well. Vertical growth. The whole system is customized for robotic work and allows growth in levels, also in levels. In this way, there is a significant optimization and increase in yield and quality. It can also be grown indoors and thus neutralize the weather effect. And finally, there is of course the issue of new crops. Here I refer to the development of new sources of protein. It was mentioned before, such as insects, algae. Also through breeding processes, it is possible to increase the percentage of protein in existing crops. And of course, the whole field of cultured meat, which is an excellent example for the connection between the agri-tech and the food tech. So to summarize, we need to start treating climate change as something that has come and will remain, not some change process that is about to end at a certain point. The climate has become extreme and agriculture is already responding and progressing. The technological systems can help adjust and create the resilience of the crop to future extreme scenarios. This can only happen if there is a constant connection between the tech people and the people in the field. Constant updating on what is happening in order to develop the response quickly. Also, looking at the big data can only be done using new systems that will support decision-making processes. And of course, only in cooperation between different fields of knowledge, it will be possible to develop the complete holistic approach. It will provide a solution to the problem while preserving the environment and thinking about the future. And by that, I just want to say that us at the Ministry of Agriculture, our most efforts recently are to implement the new technologies into the agricultural field. And for that, we have a huge fund that we are about to release. And we believe that it will promote dramatically the Israeli agriculture. And in general, implementing more and more technologies into the fields will increase the yield, will support the growers to deal with the climate change and other challenges that are facing them every day. Thank you very much. And I'll stay here to get questions at the end of the session.
Okay, thank you very much, Michal. That was a great talk and the perspective is very, very interesting. Our next speaker is Tali Nehushtan. Tali, please.
Hi, thank you. Just a minute, I'm looking for my presentation that disappeared. Just a second. hope that you can see it now. Sorry for the delay. And thank you all my previous lectures. It was very interesting, and I hope that InnovoPro, I'm Tali Nachushtan, CEO of InnovoPro. I hope that our operation would do some contribution to the concerns and to the technology protocol that you just mentioned. So we're a food tech company. We were established by Dr. Asher Shmulevich in 2015, and we have a proprietary green technology for the extraction of 70% chickpea protein and other chickpea derivables. And we were the first to launch chickpea protein concentrate in 2018 after the successful validation of the protocol and after a scale-up in a pilot plant. We are today consist of a professional team of 13 multidisciplinary core specialists coming from various fields. And we're fortunate to have strong industry traction, as well as being able to raise during COVID-19, which was a real rough year this year, our B round of $18 million in order to support our R&D and our sales effort. We were also granted by the European Commission with the Seal of Excellence to our technology. And we produce in North America and have a global presence in Europe, North America as a logistic hub as well, and in Israel. So regarding our technology, I can only describe in high level that it's a proprietary technology which is based on the protocol of the wet extraction, in which we extract the protein and have several side streams that we intend to use as well. And we're using a clean process, meaning we're not doing the process with any organic solvents. It's based on the isoelectric point. And our product is a 70% whitish powder that we sell to food and beverage companies, CPG companies that are selling consumer products, and that they are developing a new kind of formulations for the new kind of consumers. We actually started all this journey based on our vision of sustainability. And it starts with, as I think Michal mentioned, Michal Levy, from farm to fork to the consumer. And this is a very similar chart showing exactly what we're doing in InnovoPro. We buy our chickpea from the farmers, and it's a rotational crop, so the farmers like it. It brings back nitrogen to the soil, so it enriches the soil. And we source it locally next to the factory. So we buy it from local farmers, and we save the impact of logistics. Usually what was done, or what still is done in the soy protein business, for example, is that the soy is grown in Canada or in the US. Then it is shipped in vessels and for many months to China for processing, and then shipped back as a protein to be consumed by consumers in the West. So what we want to do here is to really lower our footprint and to serve our customers in North America from North America, and of course our European customers as well. We focus in these two regions since we are regulated. The food regulation of the FDA and the not novel of the European was granted to our process and to our product. So I already mentioned that our process is green and that our R&D is focused on how to get to a zero waste and how to utilize all the side streams and make very interesting functional ingredients out of them. Eventually, our CP Pro 70, this is how the product is called, is shipped to customers like Migros in Switzerland or Simply Food in the US, and they make very delicious products out of it, which are all clean label and healthy. And everything starts with the consumer. This is what we call the chickpea protein revolution, really started with the consumer's revolution. They are the one that started several years ago to be concerned about health and to lower their meat and dairy consumption. Not many of them call themselves vegetarians or vegans, but even though they do not define themselves as such, they are reducing their meat and dairy consumption. So we call them semi-vegetarian or flexitarian. And another thing that you can say about those new consumers is that they would like to avoid GMO. And this is like a consumer concern that they have. And also they would like to avoid allergens like soy and gluten. And basically they would like to enrich their plant-based consumption and their protein consumption from plant-based. And of course, the CPGs and the retailers acknowledge this new consumer, and the growth at the food aisles of Carrefour or Migros or even here in Israel are doubling. They give double facing to plant-based products with plant-based proteins. And when I started to work for the food industry many years ago, when we had like 3% growth a year, it was like a real good year. And now you can see that the plant-based category is growing in many regions in 2 digits, and they are expected to be 53% growth in 2 years in the US and 38% growth in total plant-based meat alternative sales in the US. And I think the most important consumer behavior that our product, the CP Pro 70, the chickpea protein, is relating to is that 1 out of 3 people are reading their food labels. This is something new. And when they see a 23 ingredient list, which some of them they do not recognize, or some of them they do not recognize even as food, they turn the product back to the shelf or don't buy it through the internet online channel that they buy the product from. They would like their products to be clean label. And this is what our CP Pro 70 is doing. It has an ability to clean the formula, meaning to create by adding only 2 to 4% of chickpea protein to, let's say, an egg-free mayonnaise or a non-dairy dessert, or even to a vegan ice cream, you can take out a lot of unwanted ingredients, stabilizer, in numbers, and you can have basically a very short list of ingredients which are all can be recognized from your own kitchen. So you can see on the left-hand side, this is a chocolate flavored dessert, a very well-known one that is sold in supermarkets all over the world, also in Israel, based on soy. It has 23 ingredients in it. And you can see our version of the chocolate flavored dessert, the CP Pro 71, with 6 to 8 ingredients only, including the vitamins that we added. So basically we do better with less, and this is also was mentioned in one of the previous lectures. So this ingredient, it's a smart one. It can work in many applications, not only in meat analogs, but also in dairy alternatives, in energy bars, ice creams, and spread and dressing. So we get approached by many food companies in several industries and not just in one. And if I'm summarizing why is City Pro by InnovaPro is innovative and why is it a winning solution for the food and beverage industry, I can say that it is offering the 4 pillars, several properties that you cannot find today in one protein. First of all, the functionality. It is very easy to work with. And when R&D managers in companies like Danone or Nestle are approaching a project, they would like it to be easy. They wouldn't like to formulate and to struggle, and this ingredient allows them high solubility, high functionality, and it's easy and nice to work with. Also, on the nutritional side, a 70% concentrate is considered in the industry as high concentration, and the other 30% are also low in carb, low in sodium, and high in fibers. And the most important thing in food is taste. So when a product has a beany taste or off flavors, like most of the plant-based proteins, consumers don't buy it again and again. They buy it once and then they don't buy it anymore. Therefore, the food industry is really in a search, in a quest for neutral taste. Otherwise, they would need to mask it, as you saw in my previous sample of the pudding, of the chocolate dessert, and you get to 23 ingredients. So the taste is everything, and our product is a neutral in taste. We have profession dialogues and more than 100 R&D projects with food companies worldwide, and some of them had already launched products to their markets, like Migros, the Swiss retailer, which is also one of our shareholders, but many more in the Czech Republic, in the USA, many in Israel as well. Also Buza ice cream. If you know the brand, you can have a chickpea protein Buza ice cream there as well. And Nir, the first, Nir also presented this slide, so great minds think alike. And we were very proud in InnovaPro when we heard that the World Food Programme was awarded the Nobel Prize for its effort to combat the hunger under Corona pandemic. And we're happy to be part of this food revolution. And on behalf of the InnovaPro team, thank you very much for inviting me.
Tali, thank you very much. That was very inspiring.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next speaker is Gidon Toperov. Gidon, the floor is yours.
Thanks. I'll try and share my presentation. Did I manage? No.
We can see it.
You can see it? Okay, great. So, my name is Gidon Toperov from the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. And I would like to, first of all, thanks for the great presentations, really very interesting and inspiring. I would like to dwell a little bit deeper into climate change and adaptation to climate change, and I'm representing the work of me and friends, colleagues in the Ministry of Agriculture, Mark Pearl, who's our agrometeorologist, and Anat Lewengaard, who used to work with me until recently, and our colleagues in the Israel Meteorologic Service, specifically Yitzhak Yosef. Let's see, how do I move? Okay, is this working? Okay, so a few words about Israel Agriculture agriculture, just to present our field. So Israel is a semi-arid to arid climate with most of the land of Israel is very much desert. Some of it less than 100 millimeters of precipitation, all of them within a short period of the year. So there's an annual net water deficit in almost every part of the country, and therefore economical feasibility of the agriculture relies on irrigation, but the amount of water available for irrigation is only enough for about 50% of the land. And during the past 10 or a little bit more, 10, 20 years, we have been using an increasing amount of non-fresh water for agriculture irrigation. I'll get back to that later. So only less than 20% of the land in Israel is agricultural land. Out of this land, 150,000 hectares, which we refer to often as 1.5 million dunams of the land is pasture, 420,000 hectares of arable land. Out of this arable land, about 3/4 is open fields, and the last quarter is orchards and protected, mostly vegetables and ornamental flowers, etc. And from this, about half is irrigated and half is rain-fed. So that's where we are working. Everywhere in the world, the availability of land per person, and luckily for me, I've had the introduction of the great talks from Professor Nir Ohad and others. We have an increasingly smaller amount of land for growing agriculture per person all over the world, but in Israel, it's even more than other places. And now I'll get to climate change. We all know the greenhouse effect is what allows us to live on this planet and have a bearable climate. The energy coming from the sun, some of it is trapped within the atmosphere due to the greenhouse gases, but because of the steep increase of concentration of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere, our climate is changing. To get to the point, how do we reduce food greenhouse gases? First of all, as Michal, my colleague, says, we have to grow more with less. We have to use water efficiently. I lost this. Okay. Use nutrients precisely. Protect natural ecosystems, because one of the main causes for greenhouse gas emissions is changing the land to agricultural land over the world globally. I'm not talking about Israel specifically. Protect soil and manage waste better. And two of the most important are move to a plant-based diet and reduce waste. The last two, whereas the first 6 measures are agricultural, the other 2 are not agricultural measures, but they are more related to to the population's choices. So I just had a very recent paper just from 2 weeks ago in Science. Used models to see how we can limit the climate change to the 2 degrees and 1.5 degrees limits, which is what we are globally trying to reach since different agreements. The last one is the Paris Agreement from 2015. So up till now, most of the reduction of greenhouse gases has been within the energy and transport sectors, but it is now apparent that we have to reduce greenhouse gases also in the food system. So how can we do this? This paper shows that the black bar is the business as usual scenario, in which there's a 67% chance that we will cross the 2% limit. And the one strategy that can make a biggest impact is move to plant-rich diets. In this case, if globally 50% of our diets become, or the 50% reduction in non-plant diets, we will have done enough to limit, to have a 50% chance of limiting the climate change to 1.5 degrees. And there are other measures like use more healthy amounts of calories, higher yields of agriculture, half the waste, make higher efficiency within food production. And if all of these measures are used together, then we get the gray line, which is very good because it gives a 67% chance of limiting climate change to within 1.5 degrees Celsius. What do we expect because of climate change? So obviously the air temperatures are going up, the sea level is going up, the specific humidity is going up, but on the other side, snow covers globally are going down, the sea ice levels are going down, which is very worrying. The IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, if other laureates of the Nobel Prize were mentioned earlier, so the IPCC is another a winner of the Peace Nobel Prize for its work on climate change. There are different scenarios according to future greenhouse gas emissions or greenhouse gas concentrations, but according to all models, you can see here a large range of models, but according to all models, we are going to see extended heat, and this is actually, these are models from the South European and Mediterranean area. Closing into Israel, this is a map of Israel, and these are not models, but the actual changes in maximum temperature over the past 30 years in Israel. And we can see that even though we were talking before about 1.5 to 2 degree increase of temperature in Israel, which is in the East Mediterranean, which is a hotspot of climate change, we have already reached an increase of 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius. So this is where we do our agriculture. And previously we were always talking about this long list. We call it Reshimat Makolet, a grocery list of the different impacts of climate change on agriculture, but gradually we are trying to move from this qualitative list to more quantitative indices. So together in collaboration with farmers, with instructions, our extension service, which I am part of, and others we have, and researchers, we have been defining indices, climatic indices, which are important for our agriculture. Just for an example, some of the 54 indices, days of maximum temperature above 38 degrees in the spring have very bad, cause a very bad loss in fruit orchards. For example, we count the consecutive dry days as a measure, as an extra measure for droughts, because it's not only the amount of rain counts, but also the number of consecutive dry days. And these are all indices which were defined by the farmers and the farmer trainers. So I don't have time to show it here, but when we look at the changes during the past 60 years and the model predictions for the future, we have to say that most of these indices in most of the areas are becoming worse, meaning the conditions will become more challenging for Israel agriculture. Globally, it's variable. In some areas, they're expecting some benefits from climate change, but from what we see, Israeli agriculture, we're expecting mainly more challenging conditions. So we had said a word about mitigation of climate change, reducing greenhouse gases and the greenhouse gases, and the rest of my presentation, a few more slides, will be about adaptation to climate change. And this is the main focus of Israeli agriculture. So just something I was looking at before, our hosts are the Ben Gurion University and the Sde Boker Centers for Desert Research. So I couldn't not go back to David Ben Gurion. And he was asked to make a prediction in 1962 for the Look magazine. What will the world look like in 25 years' time, in 1987? And he made some astounding predictions about the end of the Cold War, disintegration of the Soviet Union and the union of the European states, etc. But one of the interesting things in our context is his prediction that we will be using seawater and treating it in order to use it for agriculture, and saying that if Israel can find non-expensive processes to purify seawater, that would be a big help for Israel and for the entire human race. And funnily enough, this is very close to what we are seeing. So I thought that's an amazing prediction in this light. Water use in agriculture, I think I'll just go through this very quickly, because my time must be finishing. So water use in Israel, we're using over the years more and more non-fresh water for agriculture irrigation. It has been above 50% for a long time, and what's called water decoupling. The green line is the amount of water used in agriculture. The purple line is the produce. Usually you need more water to produce more agricultural produce, but the decoupling is the fact that we have been managing to produce grow more crops without using more water. So that's our something that we can maybe help some other places in the world. This is just a photo from Anat Loengart showing a desert area where within a few weeks, using very efficient irrigation, you can see that this is still desert land, but it's completely green, because you have managed to take all the water straight to the roots of the plants and not wet the whole area. So this is a very efficient way of what Michal was describing as grow more with less. Obviously, there's work to do also with using nutrients much more.
Gidon, I'm sorry to interrupt. Your time is up, so please conclude.
Okay, a phrase that has been used, which I like, sustainable intensification. In order to feed the world, we have to be able to intensify agriculture, but we have to do it sustainably. So with that, I will finish. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting, and I think the part I liked most is that you were able to show that we're talking big words, climate change, changes and challenges, but each of us can make the difference by changing our diet. So this is very interesting.
Very right.
So our next, last but not least speaker is Dikla. Dikla, please.
Thank you all. I will share my presentation. Oh, no, not this. Oh, no, this. Just a moment. And this one. Just a second. Can everyone see?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So thank you, Tipora, and thank you all. My name is Dikla Montecchio, and I'm a Director of Investments and Strategic Partnerships at the Kitchen Hub, which is a seed investor and a food tech incubator in Israel. In the last decade, like Gidon just mentioned, and also the panelist before him, the world is suffering from various problems threatening the health of our planet and the life on it, humans, animals, and plants. We, as a leading Israeli investor, put these problems on the forefront of our daily work. We invest, nurture, and help our companies with commercializations into the global market. Until today, we invested in 19 portfolio companies. As an incubator, in addition to seed funding, we provide our companies hands-on support in all aspects of development, from technology, business development, HR, operations, and more. We also use the knowledge and know-how of the Strauss Group, which is backed the Kitchen Hub. We have a global network of partners that are collaborating with our portfolio companies and includes some of the largest food and food-related companies in the world, like PepsiCo, Danone, Givaudan, Mitsui, and more. We invest in food tech innovation through the whole value chain, but with the focus on sustainability, alternative proteins coming from plants, fermentation processes, and from cultured foods. But we also focused on food waste reduction and circular economy. And I would like to tell you a bit about some companies in our portfolio which are operating in this field. So what is cooking? The first sector is alternative proteins. We are at the beginning of a new dawn with an increasing demand, 70 billion worth market by 2025 for alternatives in the dairy, meat, seafood, and eggs market. We are no longer only food, we are high tech. The first company that I'm presenting is Zero Egg, a plant-based egg company bringing to the market safe and sustainable egg replacement. The company has just closed funding round of $500,000 and started to operate in the US. Real Bite is a plant-based mincemeat company. Its products highly nutrition, clean label, and has the right texture and great taste, especially for food for meat lovers. Flying Spark deliver highly nutritious fruit fly proteins and oils for both the food and the cosmetic market. We invested in Ale Farms, which is a global leading cultured meat company with major benefits like similar taste and texture of meat, nutritional values, and more. Imagine Dairy is a cultured company in the dairy sector. The company developing animal-free proteins for nourishing the world with sustainable and healthy products. ETHIOP is driven by the passion to create a sustainable and resilient protein supply to help nourish the world and allow healthy environment. The company develops new sources of protein to reduce the impact of intensive agriculture on biodiversity. We also invest in health eating sector. And in the last year, we invested in Vanilla Vida, which can bring vanilla growers to grow vanilla anywhere in the world during the whole year with stable prices and stable quality. Anina is another healthy eating company. Is the next generation of ready-cooked meals with 100% natural ingredients using ugly produce. In the world of food safety, we have a couple of companies, and I want to bring you one of them, which is Puritect, protecting our sources of life. Puritect is driven by the belief that access to clean water and food is a fundamental element of our society. The company mission is to eliminate microbial contamination by utilizing smart and sustainable solutions for better living for all. Thank you. And I'll be happy to answer questions by mail. You can also reach me by phone, Tzipora Evit, and I'm here if you have any other questions.
Dikla, thank you very much. It was magnificent, really the state of the art of the food tech. So thank you.
Yeah, the Israeli high tech in best.
Absolutely.
We have great people and great innovation, both in food and in agriculture. And we are here to help everyone.
Thank you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're done with the talks, but now we have more time for questions for our speakers. So if anyone has a question, please raise it. Okay.
Can I ask a question, Shoshana?
Yes, sure.
So the question is, if so many farmers can increase such rapidly their production, does the market reach saturation? Does that lower prices? How does it affect the farmers and the market in marketing?
Excellent question. We invested a lot of thought in it. First of all, that we work now, Ethiopia and Tanzania, the shortage of vegetable supply is so dramatic that we are far from reaching saturation of the market. Just to give you an example, in Ethiopia, they consume about 600 grams of tomato per capita per year. I think in Israel, we typically consume that amount in 2 days or 3 days. So the shortage is very severe, but this is not a good enough answer. We diversify the offer to farmers. We have about 7 crops that we have adapted to the Ethiopian conditions, and they can do crop rotation and plan according to their market demand. But also we encourage farmers to invest in other income sources. Some of them buy oxen and rent them out to other farmers. Some start a milking operation. One of them even bought a tractor and so on. So we are very cautious about this issue, and it's part of our training program. We give them seminars, and we always advise them to diversify and to address the market needs.
Thank you.
Michal, I have a question. Can I ask you some? something regarding your talk. I wonder whether, I wonder if you have to choose one thing that you want to encourage within Israeli, or even from your perspective, world agriculture, that you find most significant to agriculture innovation, what would it be?
Wow, only one?
Okay, two.
Okay, so I believe, I think that also, if I'm taking into consideration the COVID-19 effect that basically brought up to the surface challenges that we all knew that we have and we are dealing with, I think I'll pick the robotics and also the alternative protein, or, you know, talking about protein, it can go to a lot of directions. One, plant-based protein. The other one is breeding, as I mentioned in my talk, breeding known plants, known crops to have a higher percentage of protein. For example, if we're taking potatoes, okay? Potatoes are considered to be a carb, right? So we are talking about 4% protein in potatoes. If we'll be able to double it, okay, by breeding new variety of potato, it will be dramatic, right? So this is only one example. And of course, protein can be also from insects, or in general, bringing new crops growing in yeast, so in algae. So I think the two are robotics and protein.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, any other questions from any other participants? Okay, so
I think it was a very interesting session, I must say.
For me too. Yeah, it was. I think it was a great perspective. I want to thank all the speakers. I think we were able to really give various aspects of what we were talking about. And again, thank you for making the effort and using the weird platform in those weird days, and gathering anyway and talking about the things that we're interested in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Have a nice evening.